Hey, you guys, this is Josh
And Carolyn.
with Homesteading Family, and welcome to this week's episode of the Pantry Chat, Food for Thought.
This week, we are going to be talking about easy ways to move towards no waste in your home.
Or zero waste, as they call it.
Zero waste,
So
that's
we're
right.
going to explore that whole topic. All right, well, before we get into the zero waste topic,
Right?
what's going on with you?
Right now we have, it's kind of like fall spring. It's time, it's getting muddy, it's starting to go
Yep.
away, the snow melts, and then we get a snowstorm, the snow comes back.
And deep freeze is coming. I was just looking at the weather.
I know, it's that. We've been up in had days in the 60s,
Yep.
and now all of a sudden we're talking down in the single digits.
Down near zero.
Oh my
Three
goodness.
days of not coming out of freeze.
And that's not
But-
great for the spring perennials that are starting to do something already. I may have to run and go mulch. Some of my bulbs are already coming out.
Some of the bulbs are coming out. Thankfully,
Yeah.
the trees aren't showing. Their
Yeah,
buds
so that's
aren't
okay.
aren't swelling too much. They certainly haven't opened. So
Yeah.
this is early enough that hopefully it's not going to damage the fruit crop on the trees
Right.
and most of the perennials. You
Yeah.
might set a few things back, but
But-
you can't predict the weather. And I know a lot of folks,
Yeah, Lord.
especially over in the southeast, deal with that a lot.
Yeah,
Remember
mud season,
Tennessee did
right?
that, drove us crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
It's a rough time. You just want it to go to spring. But the upside of all that is it's time that we get to start starting seeds inside. And so I have
Yep.
some perennials that I'm adding to my herb garden this year. I've got a couple different annuals that go in my herb garden every year
Yep.
that I need to get started. And so I am getting ready to get that going. And then I have one other project. I haven't even told you about this project,
Oh.
but I have one other project that I just really want to try. And if I don't jump on it, I'm going to miss my window. And we've got birch trees all over
Yeah,
the
we
property.
do.
We have a
A lot
ton
of
of
birch.
birch trees.
Yep.
And I really want to do a little tapping for the birch
Yeah, that would be
water.
fun.
I don't think I'm going to go so far as to turn it into syrup because it takes 80
Yeah,
gallons.
it's 80 to 1.
It's really
that's
high.
tremendous.
It's like double the amount that it takes for maple syrup.
Right.
So I don't think I'm going to try that far. I don't plan on getting 80 gallons.
Though it would be a fun project to do because we have birches. So
Because we do
one
have a
day,
lot of them, yeah. It would be
when
good.
there's room for a spare project like that.
But
that
that
much.
birch water in the spring is super, super mineral rich. It's incredible because it's just pulling that right out of the deep, deep roots. And so I'm really excited to do that as kind of a spring tonic
Fun.
and just drink birch water through, which actually tastes really good. I've had a sip of it before at a friend's house and it actually tastes very good. But it's just very life-giving. So
Yeah.
I'm excited
Very
about
cool.
that. Yeah.
She's always doing something fun. Always got some cool project.
Always
going
getting into
on.
trouble somewhere. Oh, did I tell you you're going to have to be involved?
Which usually equates to more work for me. Thanks for the advance notice.
Right. So what have you been doing?
Oh man, well, let's see. Pruning trees.
Mm-hmm.
Pruning some of the fruit trees. And if you guys didn't catch it, our last weekend's videos, we did a
Yes.
how-to with our friend Casimir on how to prune a tree. Just a lot of great information in there. And what I loved about it is was really freeing. People really stress out about you got to prune a tree and months it in with R, and you got to do this, and you're going to really mess up your
Right.
trees. And you know what? In a homestead orchard, it's just different. In a commercial orchard, there's you're working for profit. There's
Yeah, you
specific
gotta kind of
guidelines.
maximize
But when it
everything.
comes to the tree in a homestead orchard, there's a lot more freedom to tailor things to your plan and even your timing.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was a really cool video. If you guys didn't check that out, it'll be linked below. And Kaz and I also did, while you took a day off from the Pantry Chat, did a how to plan a small orchard, homestead orchard, and how to approach
Yes.
that. So
I tell you, Casimir's the person you want to talk to about that because he knows what he's talking about. So that's
Yeah.
really neat.
So that got me working on trees a little bit, and means we've got to start chipping
Yes.
for mulch, because now we did a heavy pruning on that one tree, and some other stuff going. So getting ready to do that.
Time to do that.
Doing the final garden planning and setting all my dates for seed starting and planting outdoors.
Yeah, you're coming
And
right up to seed starting for the main
pretty
garden
quick
too,
here,
aren't you?
and I'll give another plug because we're going to do a seed starting video, just a real simple
good.
how-to
Right?
on just kind of fail-proof seed starting indoors. This is not outdoors, but this is
That's
for
what I need. Let me
indoors.
tell you, I killed my starts year after year after year until we kind of found this method.
Yeah,
So,
right. And
yeah. And then
you've
you've
got a method that
taken
works
it
great.
and
I've
you've
taken
kinda
it and
tweaked it
tweaked it a
even
little
more.
bit to what I think makes it just a little more efficient and
Right.
easier. But
finally, no more dead baby plants.
yeah.
That's a
Oh,
good
yeah, you've
start.
been great. You started, 500 something perennials last year.
Last year, yeah.
And I don't think you hardly lost a one.
Okay, who's counting how many times we touch our face? Because I can't stop. I just gotta say. Now I'm like hyper aware every time I get a hair in my face.
Yeah,
It's like, don't touch my face.
And what makes you think of that?
Oh, well, just virus spread and all like that.
Coronavirus.
More than anything, it's made me realize I touch my face constantly, even when I'm trying not to. So I've gone to just making sure my hands are clean.
Well, that's good.
I mean,
and we
not
need to.
because we don't even have coronavirus here right now.
We don't. You know what? Idaho so far,
Has had nothing.
I don't know. I can't guarantee that by the time you guys see this, but as of
Right.
filming, it has nothing. But you know what? Coronavirus is just creeping into the conversation, even here in North Idaho.
It is.
We can't get rid of it. And I know a lot of you have been affected. We've heard
Yeah.
about friends, getting it in their county and the hospital setting up for one person and setting up special tents. And
Yeah.
this is going to continue to affect us. And it might even be worth discussing at some point. You
Yeah,
and I.
maybe we
I
should
don't know if
talk
you
about
guys
that
would
a
be
little bit.
interested in that. We sure have some thoughts on just preventative and dealing
Steps
with
that
it.
we're taking to be prepared.
And maybe even lowering the drama a little bit.
Yes, please.
Because this is just really a little out of hand.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, I found that I touch
But
my
it
face
does make
all
me
the
think
time.
about how often
yeah.
I touch my face just thinking about a regular flu season or cold season.
And that's one of the reasons.
It really is a way that we spread viruses
Right.
and we get things. And so I've come to the conclusion I cannot keep my hands off my face. You're welcome to count how
You
many
are
times
not
I touch
alone.
it.
Most people do. And I think we were reading a statistic that
Right.
said the average person touches their face like 90 times.
In an hour or something.
Is
like
it an
that.
hour?
Oh, yeah.
I was going to say a day, but it's a lot.
No, it is a huge
And they tell you,
amount.
keep your hands out of your face. I don't think that's the
I
solution.
don't think it's even possible. So,
Right.
anyways, you're welcome to count though, and let us know how many times we touch our face if you want. Maybe it's a good
Give
exercise.
us some numbers.
But no,
Now my nose is
I know.
starting to itch.
Everything on my face just itched. Okay, so
All right.
anyways, moving on.
Okay, so
Question of the week.
Question of the week. All right, this question is from Colleen Burris. Hey, Colleen, how you doing? On the video, does homesteading save you money? If you guys haven't seen that one, go check it out. That's been a well-received video.
Yep.
And she is asking, can I supplement protein for my chickens by giving them meat scraps? Absolutely, you can. That is a great idea. Chickens are definitely omnivores, and they eat everything from seeds to vegetables to meat scraps.
Absolutely. Actually, if you look in the old literature, the old books, you will see directions to make things, specifically meals for your chickens that include meat scraps, extra, just whatever you have on hand. I'll see if I can find it, but I remember cottage industry. You remember reading Cottage Industry? I can't think of the guy's name who wrote that now, but that was written, I want to say, back in the 1700s.
Okay, yep.
And he has an entire plan for feeding your chickens. And
From your homestead, right? From your
homestead,
property.
and it involves cooking for them every day and meat scraps.
Yeah.
Absolutely, to get the most out of your eggs, or get the most eggs out of your chickens.
Well, and we're very trained today in commercial industrial standards. So we
Right.
think we've got to go buy bags of feed. But you guys, it wasn't that long ago. People didn't have just a feed store or what nearby to go get feed for their chickens. Chickens had to be fed from the homestead to get eggs from them. And so, leftover meat was one of those.
Yeah.
And that's absolutely fine. We generally try to avoid giving them chicken.
Yeah.
It happens, it gets in there, and chickens will eat a dead chicken. So is it wrong? Is it bad? I know it grosses some people out. We try not to, but it does happen. And right now, as we don't have pigs, the chickens get the scraps.
Right, they get all the kitchen scraps.
And that goes into compost. So that is an excellent solution for lowering your feed bill is giving them, leftovers from the plate with meat in it.
I have seen people actually request on their local Facebook groups any old meat in people's freezers that people are going to throw away, so that they can take that and turn that into animal feed, whether it's for their dogs or for their chickens.
Yeah.
I've seen that a couple times now, and I think that's a great thing, especially if you live in a hunting area. You get sometimes a lot of meat when you're cleaning an animal that has been hunted that has meat that's not going to be usable for your kitchen.
Yep.
Around bullet wounds or different things.
They'll pick the bones off, even larger bones. If you want to give them to your chickens first, let them pick them off and then give them to your dogs.
Right.
That's a great solution. And this is a great segue in today's topic, because we should not be throwing any food in the trash can.
Zero.
Talking about zero waste. There is no reason to throw food away and send it to the landfill.
Absolutely.
There are lots of uses for it, even in an urban, certainly a suburban environment where you've got a little patch of ground. There's just no reason to do that.
Yeah.
And this ties right into zero waste and thinking
Absolutely.
about reusing and getting the distance out of whatever it is that we produce or buy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Nice
cool.
segue.
Yeah.
Like it.
Let's dive in. So what is zero waste, and why are we talking about this?
Okay, so zero waste is a coined term that is popular right now that just indicates a movement towards being conscious of reducing your waste, right? So does zero waste mean that you're actually not going to produce any waste? No.
It's pretty much impossible in today's world.
In today's world, that is almost impossible. There are some people who have pretty much dedicated their life to it, and they can get their trash amount down to an incredibly small amount. That's not really what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
We're talking about zero waste in terms of let's be conscious of creating less waste.
And it's a good, let me just add, it's a good goal. I've argued with the terminology. I don't like the terminology because it's not possible.
Right.
Yeah, and it kind of creates a false idea. However, as far as a goal and a target, it keeps us motivating, because we can always be reducing waste.
We can.
None of us are hitting the mark, or very, very, very few.
Right.
And so having that goal, that target, I realize is a good target, because it reminds me that, there's always places I can be better at in this.
Right. So why would we want to go zero waste? Like, why would we want to care about reducing the waste?
Well, I think we have some responsibilities, and stewarding the planet.
So stewarding something would mean just taking good care of
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
We've been given, right?
We've been given a planet. It's ours to take care of, and it's our responsibility to manage it well.
I just heard a statistic that in the next decade, we're on target to produce the same amount of plastic that has been produced since the 1950s altogether.
In 1 year?
In 1 decade.
In 1 decade.
In this coming decade, we're going to produce the same amount of plastic that has been produced over 70 years previous to that. Is that right? From the 50s.
Yeah, that's just insane, and we can't get rid of that stuff.
No, and we already know it's filling up our oceans, it's filling up all over the place. So it's a really important thing. Even if we can't see it filling up right now, it's an important thing to be aware of, because we're responsible to take care of those things.
And the reality is people want to blame companies, corporations. I know I'm going to go on a little tangent here, but I want to call us back to our responsibility, because in the end of the day, it's the consumer responsibility.
Absolutely.
And what you buy and what you use. And we're going to talk about that as we get into this here. And we don't want all those plastics. We need to buy less.
Yeah.
And find a way around that.
Yeah.
So anyways, probably better move on so we can cover our topics.
All right.
It's also financially a good idea. It's good for the pocketbook, right?
It is really good for the pocketbook. Little changes that mean you're buying less that you're going to just throw away actually add up over time. I know I've quoted this number, and now it's been years since I've seen it, but a couple years ago I found a statistic that said that the average American family spends $5,000 a year on disposable products.
Wow.
$5,000, that's what I mean. It's good for the pocketbook, right?
So
you're buying things to throw it away. Now,
is that including the packaging of things, or is that just like
I don't
disposable
know, and
products?
I'm going to assume that includes things like toilet paper, right? Like you
probably
buy it to dispose of it. But that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money in a family's budget to go to something. So it does end up being good for the pocketbook in the long run.
And we were talking about a couple of weeks ago about whether or not homesteading saves you money or not. And this is one of these areas where you can create efficiencies and spend less.
Yes, absolutely.
And wrapped up in the lifestyle. So zero waste is also good for others.
Yeah, this is really important. This is something that's really hit home with me, is that here in the United States, and if you're joining us from another first world country, we're used to seeing things pretty clean, our waste is contained and nicely packaged and put out of sight where we don't see it. The reality is all of that waste goes somewhere, and there are people in the world who are living with the effects of your waste.
Yep.
It's somewhere, and it is not healthy, and it is decreasing somebody else's quality of life. And, when I put that in perspective of, gee, something is convenient for me, but that is decreasing somebody else's quality of life, we have to be aware of that. And in our culture, it's so easy to lose sight of that because it's not in front of us all the time.
Yeah, you don't see it. We keep everything clean. Now, in my travels and consulting and having been to a few different countries, you see that a lot more.
In places.
And you see where that education hasn't filtered in and where those effects are happening.
Right.
And we also don't realize we're doing it to ourselves, even our own landfills and whatever's going in there.
Yeah.
And so, yes, it's actually kind of good etiquette, good thinking of others.
It is. It is very good.
Alrighty, and one more here we have in zero waste makes you more personally sustainable.
It does. It makes you think about the decisions that you're making, right? It makes you think about your purchasing decisions. Do I need to buy more paper plates, or can I just get some more plates and wash them? Right. That just means that you're being more sustainable. You're making more sustainable decisions. You're doing something that can be repeated over and over again versus something that is dependent on a factory producing something and giving it to you.
Sure. And another quick example is just buying in bulk.
Yes.
By buying in bulk, you are creating less waste. Instead of buying a whole bunch of 5-pound packages, you buy a 50-pound package. It's less waste, and you have increased your own just sustainability in starting to stock up on supplies.
Right.
Yeah, we can go a long way down there, and I imagine we'll cover some of these coming up.
We have some specific tips coming up. So I know for us, years ago, before zero waste was ever even a term, I started monitoring how much trash we were throwing away in our household. And honestly, it wasn't because I was super concerned about the planet or the environment or any of the things that we just mentioned, which are really good.
I got to just, before you go further, because people are going to ask, how did you monitor?
Oh, I
did
just
you weigh
paid
it?
attention.
Did you?
No, I just paid attention to how many full trash bags were going out.
So just kind of visually
just
watching.
Visually, just a real loose.
Paying attention, being
Most
aware.
of the places we've lived, we have to actually take our trash to the dump. We don't have trash service that comes to our house.
So we see it a lot more.
We see it. We have to handle it regularly. But I would pay attention to that more because it gave me an indicator of how much we were producing versus how much we were just buying in things to consume. Now, there's a fine line in there. Sometimes you're producing something and you have to buy in ingredients for it, and some of that ingredient comes in packaging. If you want to make soap, likelihood is you're going to buy in your lye, and that's going to come in some sort of plastic packaging, right? So there is a kind of a line in there where even as a producer, you're going to be bringing in trash waste that you have to get rid of. But there's a big difference between buying a bulk bag of rice and cooking with that versus buying a bunch of little boxes that you need 2 or 3 for a meal and using those all the time to make your dinners, right?
Sure.
You end up with a lot less waste. So it's also a really good way to indicate how productive you are being personally or as a family.
Right.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay, so we better get into some tips. We're going to share, you particularly going to share some of your tips for the household. We'll have a few for outside the house on the property. But so somebody wants to get started.
Okay, so tips
or
for
just
beginners.
Up their game a little bit.
Right.
Let's dive in here. So if you've got a few easy steps for going zero waste in your kitchen.
In the kitchen, okay, so we're just going to move through a few different areas of the house and then into the garden. And for me, one of the number one ones in the kitchen that actually did not make a huge difference once I just did it was getting rid of the paper towels. That was really hard for me to do. I was like attached to those paper towels. That was really hard to let go.
They're easy.
And I think figuring out your system for how to replace that is the important part. Once I just started cutting up old clothes that we had worn through completely, or old sheets or things like that, and taking cotton rags, the system that I really needed was just a drawer in the kitchen to dump all those rags into, not to fold them, not to do any cute little Etsy thing where you have to snap them onto, you guys have seen those, haven't you? Where it's like these perfect little paper towels on the paper towel roll and you have to snap the whole thing on. That's never going to happen in our house.
Somebody's got a lot of time.
Not going to happen. Really cute. I'd love one in my kitchen, but we're not going to use it. Once I figured out to have just a big drawer in the kitchen, that really helped.
Cool. So I really like that one because you're getting rid of the paper towels, but you don't even have to go buy something in this case. Sometimes we're going to have to buy something permanent. In this case, you're reusing something that's getting thrown out.
Double no waste, right? Because not only are you not bringing in the paper towels, but you're using something that you already have as a rag. Now, here's the thing that made this totally doable for me. As I transitioned, I had a secret roll of paper towels that I had stashed for those really, really gross things. But then I realized this is all clothing that was going to go into the trash can anyways.
You can throw those away.
I can throw it away. I can stick it in the compost bin. I can do whatever. So if the dog has an accident in the house and you don't want to wash something like your rags, you could just throw it away.
Yeah.
So
cool. We got a lot to cover, so we want to keep moving through it.
The next thing is to cook from real ingredients that have less packaging. We already kind of talked about that with the rice. Go buy ingredients and use your reusable shopping bags while you buy them, if you're buying them. Of course, my big bold tip is just grow more of your own food. When it's coming from your garden to your plate, you have a basket in between.
Yeah, grow it in between.
Totally reusable.
But if you can't do that, and very few of us are growing all of our own food, we do pretty good here, but a lot of people are on that journey, and so they're still supplementing. Instead of buying the packaged lettuces, instead of buying in small pieces, either buy bulk in the grocery store or try to hit your farmer's markets. Just about everywhere these days it's got a farmer's market close by. Buy in season. If you're buying in season, you're not having to buy packaged goods so much.
Right.
And that right there just does a whole lot as you're learning or on the journey towards growing more of your own food.
So the next one is to store your food. Try to phase out the plastic bags and the plastic wrap, right?
Yeah.
So instead I store just about anything in a mason jar. I have so many mason jars, and I have the big ones and the small ones, and I use those essentially as Tupperware in the house. If it's not something that would go into that, I would use a casserole pan, glass casserole pan to store things, or a large glass bowl. And those are usually covered with a beeswax wrap. So we have a video out on how to make
we'll get that linked in here.
Yeah, we'll put that in there.
Those are really handy.
Yeah.
And so before we move on to the next area of the house, just take some inventory of your kitchen.
Yeah.
And see what you can do. Little steps at a time. You don't have to get overwhelmed. You don't have to do everything and be perfect, but what can you do? Can you just start with the paper towels? One area that you can take and just say, I'm going to make this transition and figure it out, because it's going to change the flow of what you do.
It does. You have to kind of figure out your system to go with it.
Cool.
So,
well,
good. Moving on to
the bathroom. Ways to go zero waste in your bathroom.
Okay, big one, cleaning supplies. In the bathroom, we clean so much, you guys. It's a good time to go ahead and switch over to homemade cleaning supplies that have refillable spray bottles. Okay, stop using the Clorox wipes. I know, I love those things too, at least for the bathroom and for the toilet and stuff, but let's move away from them. It's time to get past those things. The other thing are your facial pads, your cotton facial pads. Those are really easy to replace with just some washcloths. Something you can just wash over and over again. I really recommend getting one of those net laundry mesh bags, like the lingerie bags, and then you can just put them in there so they don't get all completely lost in your laundry system.
Cheap paper ones don't work on my face anyways. Okay.
And make your own toiletries and personal care items so that you're not buying in packaging all the time. If you're making your own face washes, your own exfoliants, things like that, you can house them in mason jars, and you don't need all the plastic to come in.
Cool. Okay, so zero waste tips for clothing and laundry.
Clothing and laundry. We do a lot of laundry in our house with our big family, so I'm really closely associated with this one. Number one is buy clothing from a thrift store or from consignment stores. Not only does that save you money, but it reduces the amount of clothing that's just going in the landfill. It's getting the most out of something that's already being produced, right?
Yep.
So making really good use of something that's already out there and saving you money. And here's another tip for that. If you're buying clothes from the thrift store, they've probably already been washed quite a few times, which means a lot of the chemical sizing has been washed out of them.
Yeah.
It's a bonus because it takes a few washes in order to be able to do that.
And then you get a triple use when you turn them into rags down the road when you have worn them out.
Yeah, very good.
Cool.
Okay. Another tip is kind of a standard is just stop getting so much clothing and get better quality clothing that's going to last longer and do double duty.
Especially if you're buying new.
If you're buying new. Yeah, absolutely. Make sure that you're only washing things that are actually dirty. Dirty towels. Towels can be hung up and dried out. One person can use the
quite
same
a while
towel
if they're dried
for a
right. I know some
long
people
time.
wash their towel every time they use it.
Every single time, right.
Yeah, don't need
it just
to do
comes
that.
up with creating a system for your family in order to be able to do that. Same thing with clothing though. Like moms, how many times have the kids cleaned their bedroom and dumped all their clean clothes into the laundry? It happens here. It drives me crazy. It drives you crazy. It drives us all crazy. But, you know, it's really good to keep training people. Don't do that, not just because it's more work for mom, but because it ends up being wasteful in the long run.
I've got a couple. Can I add in here?
Yeah, absolutely.
And one is just moving away from some of the synthetic clothing.
Yes.
The poly-based clothing.
Yes. Yeah.
Get rid of that. And two, that doesn't do as well on your body. And by moving to wool, like people have asked you about your t-shirts, you and I both wear wool t-shirts.
Yes.
They're a little more expensive. But you don't have to wash them near as much. They do not hold the bacteria the same that some of your synthetics hold, and even cotton. And so you can wear them for much longer, which means washing less.
Yes.
And better care. So that's a big one, and that's worth the cost to us.
It is, and a little too much information here probably, but when I put on a shirt that has a synthetic material in it, I can smell myself right away.
Oh, very quickly.
Like, it's surprising to me after so long of wearing wool now. It's like, wow, like, did I always smell this way when I wore this type of clothing?
Well, and to take it
it's a big difference.
And to take it a step further, if you're active outdoors, like I hunt and hike, but it can be other things, your synthetic clothing, like you say, it stinks fast.
It does.
And it needs to be washed just about every time you use it.
With a lot more detergent.
However, your wool, even under those strenuous exercises, I can hunt for a week in wool day after day and hot and sweat, and it doesn't sweat because it doesn't cultivate that bacteria that grows and causes the smells.
Yeah.
So
he thinks he doesn't smell after a week hunting.
Oh, you love it. Oh. You always tell me how good I smell when I come home.
I'm teasing. Okay. So the other thing is, if you have not moved to making your own laundry detergent, honestly, homemade laundry detergent doesn't work awesome. I'm going to be totally upfront with you.
It doesn't work for us, though. A lot of people don't necessarily we get pretty dirty a lot.
Well, we're out in the garden.
Does it work for some people? Like, especially if they're not?
No, not generally. No, it doesn't wash out of the machines well. And the reason is it's soap-based, and soap does not actually work in the appliances. Soap does not actually work that way well. So we do use it sometimes. I usually switch on and off from a natural detergent that I buy in to a homemade detergent because I feel like, okay, it cleans up the clothes a little better and then saves us money. But whatever you're doing, buy either the ingredients in bulk or buy the detergent in bulk. There are a lot of options for getting 5-gallon buckets of liquid detergent, 5-gallon buckets or big bags of a powdered detergent. And it does save you money. It's a little bit cheaper, but it has way less packaging involved.
Yeah.
Yeah, and please go to something natural. Like, don't keep using the chemicals. It's on your body all day long. Yeah. That's not cool.
Absolutely.
Okay, in the garden.
Yeah, so you covered a lot inside. Let's go out to the garden.
Yeah.
And, buying in bulk your compost and your soil amendments.
Okay.
And now the next one you have on here is actually to make your own.
Yeah.
But that takes some experience. It can be hard to make enough if you're gardening.
Yes.
And don't buy the bags. I mean, there's problems with the bags. Just most of them, it's sterilized, and it's just not a great resource. It's better than nothing if you're trying to go organic. But try not to buy in the bags. Try to buy in bulk. Get a little trailer, get a friend's pickup truck, and try to buy it in bulk.
Now, in one of the recent garden videos, you talked about doing that, and people asked, how do you buy it in bulk? Like, where would you go just to give somebody a start to look?
You just got to find a garden center. More and more garden centers. If you don't have one right close to you, look out a little bit further. It's worth the trip, but more and more garden centers are, carry organic compost in a bin that you can either shovel in or they can load in with a little bucket. That's why I say get a little trailer, get a friend's pickup truck, and go get a shovel, like a tractor scoop full, or a cubic yard. They'll often sell it by the price that way. Have a little spot in your yard, even if you don't need it all at once.
Yeah.
It's going to be less expensive and it's less waste than buying in the bags.
Absolutely.
If you're going to be mineralizing, learn to make your own, and we're going to be talking about that more coming up. I'm going to try to get you guys a recipe, but you can look up Complete Organic Fertilizer.
Yep.
And instead of buying all the little bags that are all pre-packaged, you can make it. It's a little bit of work to find the ingredients sometimes, but you can make it really, really cheap, and it's just as good and even better than just about anything you're going to buy in some little package.
Yeah.
Another one you've got on here is just buying better quality tools. Everything is so cheap today.
Yeah, I know. But it breaks and you throw it away and then you buy another cheap thing.
Right. And it's just not worth it. It's a waste of money. So when you need a new tool, buy a good one. And if you want some good homestead garden tools that will last forever and that are actually really well priced, check out our friends over at Homestead Iron.
Yeah, I'm really excited to get to use those in this garden season coming up, because I have never seen what do you call those? I'm sorry, I'm losing the word, like a trowel that is so sharp.
Yeah, your
it's
spade.
It's actually the spade that is going to actually just cut into the garden soil. I'm really excited about that.
Oh yeah.
It looks like a really good tool.
They're
that's
great.
Gonna make life easier.
They are heirloom tools that'll last you forever if you just take care of the wood handles.
Right.
So check out your tools. I've got one more before we wrap up.
Okay.
And just thinking about driving, because we spend a lot of fuel and people are used to running around a lot. Start thinking about all the trips you're making.
Yes.
And I started putting it into cost. If I'm going to go buy something, what does it cost me to drive there and back?
Yes.
And I start realizing the fuel consumption that I'm using, and that has made me really say, okay, I really want to be on it when I go out and
consolidate.
So it's almost like buying in bulk. If I do have to run out and get something, I don't want to just run back and forth.
I like it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that reduces fuel waste and saves you money. And all that takes is just thought and planning.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a quick win for you guys, something we should all do. We've done it in our household years ago, and this was actually more for cost saving. Go buy every member of the family a stainless steel water bottle or a glass water bottle, but stainless steel is not so breakable, right?
Yeah, it'll last virtually forever.
And teach them how to use it and how to care for it themselves, and stop buying the plastic water bottles. If they didn't bring it with them, then they can be thirsty for a few hours till they get home.
How many houses I go into that have packages of bottled water. They don't want to drink the tap water, which I totally get.
Right.
Get a water filter. Get a good Berkey or something if you need to.
Yeah.
And then use the stainless steel for it. So,
yeah.
Well, guys, that is definitely not exhaustive.
No,
we could
there's
talk,
so many.
and I think we're going to hopefully in the future do some other videos, maybe a little more detailed on household management and zero waste.
Yep.
But we've got to wrap it up here. And let's see, next time,
it's another Q&A session.
It's time for the Q&A where we're going to get to your questions. So feel free to drop those in and we'll cover your questions. Been good hanging with you guys. See you soon.
Goodbye.
Bye.